Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkava, joined by the lovely Deplorable Knitter and our special guest today, Cheryl of Wise Owl Knits.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, I'm
Hey,
happy to be
Cheryl.
here.
So before we start talking to Cheryl though, we need to remind you about our sponsor, Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. She's fabulous and wonderful. You can use the code Turkey20PIK to get 20% off of your next order for the month of May. So do that. And if you
Right.
comment on this video, Anne has a skein just for you. Maybe.
I do. I have the lovely PIK colorway. It is gorgeous. It has that gold and that navy blue in there along with the maroon. It's particularly nice. But this is this month's giveaway. And it can also be got at chickenladyfiberarts.com. She in whatever yarn variety you like. She has a couple new things coming out. She has a colorway of the month. She has the No Place Like Home countdown calendar, which you can also use our code on for an advent calendar. And there was something else. Something really cool. Oh, the Pivot collection that she's dying that again this year.
Very
So you can
cool.
go ahead and check that out.
I have a Patriot collection at home, or I think my mom has it now. We sometimes pass yarn back and forth to see who's inspired by it, and it hasn't turned into anything yet. We keep having all these ideas, but nothing's solidified. But it's beautiful. I think that's why, because it's such a pretty gradient that it's like I don't want to use it on the wrong project. You know,
I know.
sometimes I use the pretty yarn.
Right. I made a shawl out of it, and then I took the opposite colors and striped it. It was very cool.
I do remember that. Yes. So check out Chicken Lady. Use the code Turkey20PIK. Comment on this video to be entered to win. All good stuff. So,
Yep.
Cheryl, tell us. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm happy to be here.
Why don't you start off by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself in case they haven't come across you before?
Well, I'm Cheryl from Wise Owl Knits, and I'm a pattern designer, and I've been doing it for probably about 15 years, and really just because I like doing it. At the very beginning, I thought, oh, I can do this and sell a lot of patterns and quit my job and provide for our family with the knitwear design, but that hasn't really come to fruition. So and I've come to accept that if I can sell enough to, I guess, break even, keep myself in yarn, not have to spend money on my hobby, then that's a pretty good thing too. So
it's nice if you can get enough to cover your yarn costs and to maybe bring home a little extra, you know. Unfortunately, the designers, it seems like there's only a handful that really are doing it all the time, no matter what. So
yeah, and I don't know how they do it, as far as how can they must have other people knitting for them, because it takes a long time for me to do a pattern. I have to come up with the design, make the charts, knit the whole thing, write up the pattern, and it's, a good 2 or 3 months for me to develop a pattern. So if I can come up with 2 or 3 sweaters a year, I feel like I'm doing good. And I can do hats a bit quicker. But I did so many hats at the beginning that I'm really not interested in doing hats anymore. I really like sweaters the best now.
That's awesome.
And I hated color work. I really like cables a lot, but now I started doing color work and I'm kind of on a roll with that.
That's awesome. And that's how it is. You tend to kind of get into different, I can't think of the word, but you'll be doing one thing for a while and then you're like, I am so sick of doing that. Now I need to like pivot and work on this other kind of project. Cause
right. Got to go down a different rabbit hole and then just deep dive into that.
Yeah. because no matter
And
how much you
I'm
love something, it gets old.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes,
Anne.
and
I apologize.
that's okay. I was just gonna say, I'm impressed by the quality of your work. Like your cables are just beautiful and I mean your color work, fantastic. Love that sweater. But I remember met at the Beach and there was a question about one of your sweaters, and you're like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll pull up the sizing charts." And Cheryl pulled out this Excel spreadsheet, and it was just fascinating. Just numbers down the line. She's like, "No, no, no, it should all work out." Just the math was fantastic. I was so impressed.
And
That's
see,
cool.
that's the part that really helps me, or I don't necessarily like it the most, but it keeps my brain working, and I've learned a lot of new skills that I can use with other things. Um, just learning how to use all that software and using math. I have a sister that's a math teacher, and I keep saying, when your students say, I don't think I'm ever going to use this algebra later on. Well, knitting, unfortunately, that doesn't impress the students, high school
Yeah.
students, all that much. But
Yeah. Give them another 10 or 15 years and then they'll be appreciating it. But
yeah,
Well, that's something that my dad always said. He's like, I never thought math was worth anything. I was like, trigonometry, that's dumb. And suddenly, he's talking about rifle trajectories. He's like, no, this was all useful. Now I have to learn to do complex formulas in adulthood. And like, if you had just told me when I was young that I'd be needing this, I would have been
yeah.
way more interested.
yeah. Well,
Well,
I don't know.
it's that having a specific thing that it applies to and something that you're really interested in that makes a difference.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. And I just remember everybody saying, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket all the time. And now I'm like, haha, look at this. I have a
We
calculator in my
all have
pocket
the
all the time.
calculator.
But yeah, my kids are learning multiplication right now. And they're like, why do we have to do this? I'm like, because someday, what if you didn't have a calculator? They're like, I'm like, you have to be able to do math. And they're like, I don't want to. Too bad. Life. No, but that's really cool. So um you've been doing the sweaters for a while and you've pivoted from cables to color work, and so do you have any other plans on the horizon,
Well,
or
I'm
is it top
working
secret?
actually on 3 different sweater designs right now. And 2 of them I can't really talk about at the moment, but they're pretty well developed and in the process of knitting. And then I just have to get to all the grading of the different sizes, which that's a little bit more challenging in color work than it is in cables.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I want them to look pretty much the same on the different sizes. And in cables, I might add more background stitches between the cables. And it's a little more challenging in color work to do that.
Yeah, you can throw an extra purl in there or in between the rows or whatever, but
Right, right.
some of these color work charts are like 20 repeats. You can't do a full 20 repeats, 20 stitches for every size, otherwise it's going to get out of
Right.
control really quickly.
Yeah, and on this one, on most of the ones that I've done so far, like I started off with something that was 4 stitches wide and then, 5 and 6 but you're right, if you get to a bigger repeat,
Yeah.
then it's just a different challenge. And maybe it doesn't have to be graded into the ultra large sizes, because I don't really feel like that many of them get made anyway.
Yeah. I know that that's a push right now, is the size inclusivity.
Mhm.
And so I understand, but I think that I think in general as a knitter, like, yes, when you're learning, you really need to follow the pattern. You need to know what you're doing. But as you become more confident, part of being a knitter is kind of like looking at the pattern, looking at what you want to do with it, and like making it your own. And so I understand what people say, like, oh, you should make it for every size. But I mean, like, that can get out of control because
Right.
somebody could be off the charts and you're still expected to make it for them. I'm sorry, Anne.
No,
Apparently I'm fired up today.
no, I agree, but also that, not everybody gets larger at the same rate in the same places. So it could be like, I read a post by a gal who pattern designs for sweaters, and she was like, okay, if anybody wants to test knit, like she wanted to add in larger sizes for her existing sweater patterns. And she's like, so if anyone wants to test knit those, that'd be really, really great. Kind of got this air of, please, somebody help me.
Well, yeah, and
Uh-huh.
that's definitely the case because I don't think I've ever had anybody test knit anything over a 2X. So let alone a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So
And to Anne's point, everybody changes in different spots. I always have to modify the spot between where the armpits start, like
mhm.
the sleeve holes in my top of my shoulders, because I have very short shoulders. Like anytime I buy clothes that are like needing to fit me properly, not like t-shirts, I have to get them altered because so part of life is kind of learning how to accommodate yourself and your size and where you like Ann said, not everybody is built the same. It's not like you can take your Excel spreadsheet and be like, oh, if you're a 2X, then that means that your bust will be this big and your hips will be this big. And it,
Right.
you do your best, but I don't know.
And it even works the same way for like for this sweater, I had somebody who was really she bought her clothes in the junior section because she was just very petite and tiny. And that's kind of why I think I always thought that I was going to write this wildflower pattern for kids, but that gave me the push to go ahead and do one for babies, kids, and teens. And then she knit one of the teen sizes, and that worked for her.
Right. Yeah, that's
And that's
awesome.
a good thing about knitting is that it is very flexible and people can make modifications based on their body type. They just need to take the initiative to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Some people, I think making mistakes is terrifying to them. And so, like, the idea of knitting 3 inches and finding out that none of it is correct is kind of like overwhelming, but that's kind of like learning. Like I said, my kids are learning multiplication. They hate it when I say, hey, all these problems are incorrect. You need to go back and think about that more. And they have to erase it and redo it. But that's just kind of part of life. Like if you want to do something and you want to do it well, you're going to end up having to, it doesn't just always come overnight.
Right.
And that's an example.
And as a designer, I'm sure both of you have done this too. I have ripped out so many things. And, sometimes it's just a few inches, but sometimes it's a whole sweater and you just have to scrap it and make some adjustments and start again.
Right. And that's why I still knit only hats mostly because I'm not at that stage of my designing career where I would be okay with ripping out an entire sweater. I'd be like, no, somebody is going to wear this thing. I don't care what it looks like.
I don't care if you look like a sack of potatoes. You got to wear the sweater.
I made it. You will wear it.
Yeah.
No, but
Well, I find
yeah.
too that, when modifying patterns, different things of, I'm sure, again, as a designer, or, everybody's had this of, oh, I love this pattern, but I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, okay. On the other, I am also that person. I am the person who will, modify and change the
Right.
whole way through. And then sometimes wonder why it didn't work out. Well, I changed the recipe too far. You got to understand.
Yeah, and then they'll send you an email and say, "Well, I changed this and this and this, but your pattern's wrong. It doesn't fit right." Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's those changes.
You can tweak some, but the whole you know, like Ann said, you change the recipe too much, you're not going to get the right sauce. It's not going to work out. Oh, that's funny. And dealing with people is always interesting anyway. So
Yeah, and I'm usually pretty, I don't know, cooperative with them, and I'm happy to talk to people. But when I first started, it just kind of made me, I don't know, insulted or angry. And now I'm like, they're just people, knitters that are trying to make something. And if I can help them, talk them through it. And even when they email and say, your pattern is wrong because of this, I can usually explain to
Right.
them why it is most likely correct. And, everybody makes mistakes. So even through test knitters and tech editing, there still could be a mistake, and I'm not above that. But most of the time, I think they're pretty much correct, and I
Yeah.
can just talk people through it and explain why it is the way it is.
hmm I love my test knitters, but there is something about really seasoned knitters that they will see an error. Like I used to have my mom test knit my patterns, and she's not allowed to anymore because she's been knitting so long that she'll see a mistake and she'll just like correct it in her head and keep going. And so she won't tell me that there's any mistakes, and I'll be like, I need to know. Like
Yeah,
she's gotten better. Like she has to be very focused on like I have to make sure I'm doing exactly what you said because otherwise, you know.
I know.
And that's
I
the
I
thing.
I do a bit of that too. I'm test
Yeah.
knitting the Flower Street wrap, which I've shown a couple times before. And I got to the final section. It's pretty long. There's a lot of garter. And I realized that with the end section that my count wasn't right. But it's a garter count. Like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then I realized that at the end you're supposed to, decrease however so many, which is based on the count that you had. My count was under. And I'm sitting here realizing, and your point is to make sure that you're knitting exactly what she says so it can be tested exactly as she says. You're not actually helpful if you're not doing, if you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I picked up a couple stitches or I lost a few. Oh, it's fine. It'll all turn out like, no, that's not
I
the
mean,
point.
yeah, it might turn out fine, but that's why I'm not a good test knitter either because I don't like to rip out. So I will just like, oh, I'll just knit front and back a couple of these. Nobody will ever know. But I'm like, no. And I hate counting. Like if I have to count, man, that's like the death knell. So, but
But anyways, we're getting a
yeah,
little off
sorry.
subject. Um, but Cheryl, you also have a podcast. Been doing
I
that for
do. I do have a podcast. Not very many people watch, but that's okay. Um, Sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm just talking to myself. And, I have there's a couple of ladies at church that always ask me about the podcast. They say, oh, I haven't seen you have a new one out yet. I'm like, well, you're my only fan. So
Oh,
thank you for asking. Um,
well, what's the name of your podcast so everybody can find it?
it's called Wise Owl Knits.
Okay.
And it's on YouTube. And I also sometimes, if I remember, put it on Rumble too, but I don't always remember to do that. And there's unfortunately not tons of people over there anyway, so that's probably
Mm.
okay. And I've been trying at the beginning, I was trying to do it every week, but I just don't have enough content for every week. So I've been kind of on a schedule of every 2 weeks. And if things get busy, it might be 3 weeks, but
Yeah.
um,
If Anne and I didn't have politics, there would be several weeks where we would just sit here and blink at each other. So I completely understand.
well, when people are talking about all their whips and FOs, and sometimes I feel unproductive, but I do have things that I'm working on that I can't talk about too. So
Right.
Yeah.
there's
Have to have
that.
the secret test.
Yes. Yes. And I have a second podcast because I got this circular sock machine last summer, and I think I got it last June, and then I didn't really figure out how to use it till November. So I started making things every day. I tried to do it every day. That's just impossible. I don't know how
Mhm.
people do those blogs, But I just started
Wow.
making a bunch of things and filming it, and I put that on my regular podcast channel, and then it just got to I I felt really disorganized because all I was seeing is the circular sock machine videos, which I did a lot of, but they were, maybe 5 minutes long each. And some of them were longer. But so I just split those off and made a new channel. So that's Wise Owl Knits CSM. If anybody wants to watch me sometimes tangle up a bunch of yarn and drop stitches and figure out how to use this machine.
That's kind of cool.
Well, Cheryl, I watch your podcast, so there. I think it's awesome. And I do think the
you.
sock machine's very interesting. Like I've looked at them before, but they're their own little skill set.
They are, and I had looked at them for a long time. Like I saw one at some kind of yarn show or festival years ago, and I've always just kind of kept my eye out for one. And that's where I saw this one last year. I was walking along with my sister-in-law and I said, "Hey, there's one of those sock machines. I really want one of those." And the lady heard me and she said, "Well, this one's for sale." And she was actually cranking some things. And that was always my fear, was like, if I spend a bunch of money on this old machine, how do I even know if all the parts are there, that it actually works? But she was using it, so I felt a little confident in that, and I just went ahead and bought it. Now everyone gets socks.
Yay!
That's what I need, because I taught a sock knitting class, but I still haven't finished my own socks that I was making in the class. So maybe that would help me.
Yeah.
So that's cool that she gave you the boost just by, showing how it works at the craft thing. That's
Yeah. But then I got it home and I didn't do anything with it for 6 months and didn't know anybody else that had one. So my only way to learn was to watch a whole heck of a lot of YouTube videos of other people doing it.
And then you feed into your own YouTube economy. You're like, see, I will help others where I needed to.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It's fun. It's kind of addictive.
I could see my
But I
kids
can't use
wanting
the
to get on
rubber.
that. No?
That's another learning curve
Oh.
that
I don't
I
know
haven't
anything
got
about
to
sock
yet.
machines. So you could tell me anything and I'd be like, really? I have no idea.
I just remember one time that it was on your podcast talking about knitting. I forget how many socks. It was like a crazy amount of socks on your knitting machine. You're like, yeah, now I have to Kitchener up all the toes.
Yeah, which is what I was doing here. I have learned how to Kitchener from the wrong side, and it is so much easier and so much faster than the traditional Kitchener that we do all the time. So that was a good skill that I learned from a YouTube video of the sock machine people.
Amazing things you can learn on YouTube. I prefer the knitted off Kitchener. There's a way you like knit in each. I don't know.
I've seen it, but I have never been able to.
But if you're on the
master
sock
it.
machine, you're not on the needles anyways. So that's a different.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
And there are ways you can do a toe up sock where you don't have to Kitchener the toe closed, but that's a little tricky too. I haven't tried that yet. I think it's tricky. It may not be.
Well, it sounds very interesting. I didn't realize that you had that channel and that content in addition to your regular podcast. So I'll go watch it because
I kind of just did it so I could maybe remember what I did, and I thought it was funny at the beginning because I would mess up so much. And I just said, if I mess up, I'll just leave it on there. And but now I know how to fix my mistakes, which is helpful.
yeah, that's very cool. So you
Sorry.
just finished up a knit along, right?
I did just finish up a knit along on this sweater, the Wildflower Tea, and had about 30 people knitting along, and probably 22 of them finished, which I thought was pretty good.
That's
And
pretty
I did
awesome.
this in collaboration with Holly from Mystery Mouse Yarn Company and Susan of Delightful Works. So Susan did bags, Holly did yarn, that she had 3 different books that she used as inspiration for her yarn colors, and they were all gorgeous. And then Susan did bags to match. So,
Very
and they
nice.
both were kind enough to contribute yarn and bags for prizes. So,
That's always a lot of fun.
yeah.
I didn't realize the knit along was going on, and then I kept seeing all these wildflower teas, and I'm like, what is going on? This pattern must have just come out because everybody is making one. Like my whole feed, I had a whole bunch of them.
Well,
I
that's
missed the
good.
memo on the knit along, so that's fun.
I had to laugh at Devin on her podcast too, that she was like super excited about this. She's like, yeah. And then, immediately, sorry, that she's super excited and then immediately tweaks the pattern. But she's, just like almost
Well,
bouncing up and down about.
she's a designer, and
I know. See, it's the thing again.
yeah. I mean, really, that's how I got started. I was like, I'm changing everything. Maybe I could actually design my own thing.
Yeah, that's very
And
cool.
it's harder to do it in all the sizes than just to fit you. Like I could do
Yeah.
it right away to fit me, but
I I've thought about like making patterns and like sweater patterns, but man, the grading. I know once you get that down, it's got to be a little bit easier, but it's so terrifying.
yeah. Once you get a good spreadsheet, or maybe 3 or 4 versions of the spreadsheet, because there's variables, like if you're cabling or just doing a plain stockinette, but
Right.
if you get the basic sizes down, then it's much less time consuming than it was at the very beginning.
I'm sure. But yeah, just getting to the point where you know what you're doing seems terrifying. So I give you like I'm in awe.
Uh, it's a fun little hobby. I do enjoy it. And sometimes it's hard, but you always learn things. And as I get older and more near retirement, and my brain seems a little more excuse me, a little more foggy than it used to be when I was 20, I think doing something like this is a great thing for me, and really for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, they've done studies that shows that like engaging in like knitting or crocheting actually helps your brain. It helps fend off like
Yeah.
I don't know what it was specifically, but the onset of dementia or whatever. It's a good skill. Good thing to do. See, when people are giving you crap for always knitting.
Yeah. For a while, I worked in a yarn store, and there was a college professor that came in, and she was from one of the local state schools, not in Indianapolis, but about an hour away. And she said she had some girls in her class that were knitting, and they told her it just helped them pay attention. And at first she was really skeptical, but then she started checking into it more, and that caused her to start knitting too.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's really
eventually
interesting.
she didn't mind them knitting in there.
Yeah. I took a class last year, and part of the class they were talking about how it just needs to be muscle memory. You just need to be able to do this all the time without even thinking about it. And the instructor pointed at me and said, like, this lady in the front row who's been knitting this whole time, and I know she's probably paying more attention than some of you guys are, because because he understood that you know, I was still able to listen, and it was a lot of muscle memory and just,
Right.
and it does help. It does help a lot of things. But
Yep. It somehow keeps us more focused.
go figure.
Yeah.
So, so I had a little look-see at your website before coming on. Saw all of the beautiful cable patterns, and that you also had bags and some other small accessories and Christmas stockings. Now, I know that you're one of these people who like do Christmas stockings for their family. Are you excited for the season?
Well, right now there aren't any new babies coming along, so I think I might be good for Christmas stockings. Last year I ended up doing, I don't, probably 7 or 8, which is,
Oh my
DK,
goodness.
that's a
That's
lot.
sizable. Yeah,
That's a
that's
Yeah.
lot.
impressive.
No, but I was gonna say, I think that that's the only pattern of yours that I've had the opportunity to make so far. I made one of the Christmas stockings last year, and the pattern was so well written. I am not a sock knitter. Like, it had an afterthought. Like, everything was so easy to follow. I loved it. It was great. So
Well,
I just
thank
want to say
you.
that.
Yeah, and that's the one that you knit is the one that I usually knit for all my family members and their dogs. Yeah, I hope nobody gets a new dog this year.
Man, I still haven't knit my family any. That the one that I did was a commission, but
Yeah.
I need to. And I told my kids, "Oh, do you want me to make you one of these?" And they're like, "No, not really." And I'm like, "Come on, what's wrong with you people?" But you make them for the dogs too. That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, just
I don't
for
think
my
I would.
kids' dogs.
Yeah.
So
Not extended family. They don't
not
get that
extended
privilege.
family.
Don't like those
But
dogs that much.
yeah, the nieces and nephews get them, but not all the dogs. I mean, some of them have like 5 or 6 dogs, so that would be
Oh my
way too
goodness,
much.
no. Mm-mm. I can't make them for real people, like for actual humans. I don't think I could like go around making them for animals. I don't have the attention span. No, but so I don't know. No, I haven't tried any of your other patterns yet. I have been eyeballing that wildflower sweater that you are wearing, but
You should do
as far
it.
as the Christmas stockings, I can tell you guys 2 thumbs up, 100% would recommend. So just so you know. I might do it. I made a sweater. I crocheted a sweater, and so now I'm halfway through knitting one. Which is not yours, sorry.
Well, and one like this, it's fingering weight, so that's, takes a little longer, but no sleeves.
Maybe I'll work up to a fingering weight one.
Yeah.
Right now I'm working on a worsted weight short sleeve one, and I'm still not through that. So like baby steps here.
A little at a time.
Yeah. But can we take a minute to talk about this sweaty sweater, Anne?
Oh yeah.
Anne and I are going to have a little challenge for the months of May and June, and Anne's going to tell you about it because she knows more than I do.
Woohoo. Okay, so we are doing another joke challenge. Okay, not a joke challenge, actually a knit along. We're calling it the Sweaty Sweater Challenge. Basically, anytime that you finish a sweater in May or June, works in progress included, counts for the Sweaty
Yeah,
Sweater
but
Challenge.
but guys, if you're like seaming it up, like don't count that. Like, actually work on it some.
There actually has to be knitting or crocheting involved for it to count. But just
Right.
seaming, I mean, that's cool and all, but yeah, I'll get there. But yeah.
And so how do they enter?
Anytime you finish a sweater, you can email us at politicallyincorrectknitters, or you can use the sweaty sweater hashtag, which I will put right here because I don't know what it is off the top of my head because we didn't look
Exactly.
yet.
So there will be a real spelling. So we know.
Yes. And I'm going to show you guys now. Part of the reason it came about, well, we were talking about sweaty balls from Saturday Night Live, but also I have this sweater I started, and it's really pretty, and I love it so much. And so it's hopefully going to give me the boost I need to like finish it. So I got a sweater I'm working on. I hope you guys have stuff languishing that you can work on.
Yes. And
Maybe
we
win
all
some
know
yarn or
it's
something.
right. exactly. We all know that it's not the season for sweaters, thus the sweaty element. That we're coming
Exactly.
right into summer. You don't really want to pull out your wool sweater, but that's the challenge.
And all of
It
you
is.
that are still working on your wildflower sweaters, you can double dip now and
Yes.
enter the sweaty sweater.
Finish your wildflower sweater in the sweaty sweater challenge. I'm just gonna laugh every time I say that.
And
12.
but the Wildflower Tea isn't a particularly sweaty sweater. It's in fingering weight. It's short sleeve, you know.
I mean, it's good for those summer nights I mean, I live near a lake, so I often am wearing sweaters when other people think it's crazy because the wind comes off the lake and it's kind of cold. So, you need a couple of wildflower teas to wear.
Everybody needs one.
Or two, or several, whatever. It's all good.
I saw the couple that Holly made out of her yarn kits. Those were very pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of her kits are so different because one is very pastel and pinks and just muted tones, and others are really bright. Like she had one that was based on the Wizard of Oz, and that's all brighter colors. Of course, yellow and green, and just very inspired by the book. I started to say very inspired by the movie, but for Holly, it's always the book.
Yeah. I've never read that book.
Yeah,
We should do that. I mean, we should have. Side note, we should do it because Chicken Lady, our sponsor, is gonna have the Wizard of Oz advent, and we should all read the book and then get the advent. Just saying, it'd be fun.
Yeah. I do,
Yeah.
I do own the books, which I showed the other day, and they are very short, very, read before bedtime length chapters. So,
So
you
Anna
know.
and I'll talk about that. Who knows? Maybe we'll have another weird challenge, book club challenge. I don't know. We'll see. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that. You're talking about Holly's sweaters, and that's just where my brain went. Her kits. So one was pastels, and one was the Wizard of Oz, and then
Yeah, and the other one
It
was
was,
Little House on the Prairie.
yeah, and Little
Really?
Princess was the third one, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the Little
Yeah.
Princess was the muted colors, but Little House on the Prairie was a lot of blues and
I can't
blues
believe
and
I missed
greens and
this.
yeah,
Does
one
she
of
still have
my
them, or is she done
does
with
she
them
still
now?
have them? She might.
We'll have to check
She
that out.
might.
But you see, that is one of the brilliant things about all of these, hand dyers, though, that you can always kind of sidle up to them and kind of knock on the door like, hey, can you please? I really
Mhm.
liked this.
Yeah,
They're
and
generally very
I
cool
am
about that.
almost certain that Susan at Delightful Works has some of the bags left. It's one of my coworkers. I was showing her all the things, and she does knit, though she's more at the beginner stages and she's not ready to try a sweater yet. But she saw that Little House on the Prairie colorway and the bag, and she's just a big Little House on the Prairie fan. So she bought those just for the name.
Yeah. No, well, like you had me with the first two, but Little House on the Prairie, I still have my box set from when I was like 10. Like
Oh,
yeah, I'm on the same page. Like I want to go look at it right now, but that would be rude, so I'll wait. Um, um, no, but that's so much fun. I love it when you get to collaborate with people on your designs. It makes it so much. I mean, all designs are awesome and cool and special, but it adds another layer to it, having bags and kits, and it just makes it like such an experience from like start to finish, the whole thing. You get like a curated, so much fun.
yeah. Yeah, it
Oh,
definitely
and
is. It's fun to do it that way. And people like to have all the colors there and not have to make that decision of what to put together and
Mm-hmm.
what to
Mm-hmm.
buy.
Yeah, I have a friend that has a website, and I curate giveaways for her. So like I will put in a pattern and yarn and like tools they need, or like pom-poms or whatever, and the people just, it's great to find a pattern, but like to have it all delivered to you and like, here, work on this, and it's like, oh, this is so wonderful and lovely, like
Yeah.
it's special about it. But
You
anyway,
have everything you need that way.
yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of collaborations, I do see that hammerhead shark behind you.
Yeah. I should have maybe put him this way so I don't know. He kind of blended in with the yarn, but I like his smile.
Oh, he's so cool.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, so I took really good notes as I was doing it. So I have this pattern basically ready to go, but I have to, put it on paper and make it look nice and make sure I don't have any misspellings. But this one is so much easier to do than the shark that I did last year because it doesn't have that intarsia in the round.
Yeah.
But
It
one
can
of
be a pain sometimes.
I think
Yeah.
Anne is the only person that truly enjoys doing intarsia around. But that's okay.
It wasn't bad, but it was just harder for somebody that was a beginner. And I've got one of my knit night gals was trying to make it, and I basically had to rewrite it so that the top and the bottom were separate so that she could knit it because she just wasn't getting the intarsia in the round.
Yeah.
But
It's
so this
difficult,
one
and
is
it's difficult to
like the
describe
bottom is
too.
one piece and the top is another piece, and you sew them together.
Cool.
Nice.
He's awesome.
But they're
So
still
that
fun.
pattern, yeah, that pattern's going to be out in time for Shark Week.
Absolutely, but I don't know exactly when Shark Week is. Do you guys know when it is?
Not yet. Somebody was asking me because they're going on vacation. They were like, I want to be around for Shark Week, and I'm like, I don't know. It's up to Discovery. I'll try to find out.
It was
Right. Well, the last
July?
Shark Week, it is in July normally. But the last Shark Week we did, somebody had the dates online. I'm like, all right, awesome, that'll be Shark Week. And then actual Shark Week was a different time. So we're going to wait for a little bit before announcing the time, and it may be that we just have to choose a week.
We might just be doing our own Shark Week, and that's also fine. So
if the Discovery Channel can't commit, then sometimes you just have to go ahead and do your own thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Our totally unaffiliated shark knitting challenge.
Yeah. Well, this hammerhead will be done
By July?
Definitely by July, probably by the beginning of June.
Yeah. As long as he's ready by July, I mean, really, people have enough time, I think, probably, to get ready. But that's very cool.
Definitely knittable in a week.
Very good. I should
I know
design something
that
for Shark Week. That made me remember.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, I remember, well, a couple people knit Sharky, which I think was your last shark pattern for Shark Week. And Stephanie of Texas Peach Knits had this whole like saga of the shark, and then she made the shark and it was finished on time, and then the shark immediately went missing. Like,
Because the kids.
Sharky, I don't know where she is. The kids took it. She's like, I found it again. Good.
That.
Yeah, and it ended up being behind a door in one of her kids' rooms.
Right.
Yeah, it's
like
that is like kids in a nutshell, though. I made one of my kids a hat and mittens, and I wanted to show it off on a show. I think it was one of our Tuesday night shows, and I went, "Hey, where's your stuff?" And they're like, "I don't know," and it didn't turn up for like another month. I don't know where it was. I have no idea what they did with it. That's the magic of children. So, is there other stuff that we haven't hit on that you want to tell us about? Is there anything exciting we should be looking forward to, or not yet to talk about? Can't tell us yet.
Well, I definitely will have a couple of patterns coming out. One is a DK weight colorwork sweater. And that one probably will not be out until January because it is specifically for the Knitting McPurley retreat. And then
Are you coming again?
I am. Are you?
I am, yes.
Yay.
And I'm
Um,
still not coming.
you should come.
Ooh,
I, another year. We're going
Okay.
to we're hopefully going to Orlando right around the same time. And I told Anne, can't do it.
Yeah,
Too much all at once.
it's spendy too, but it
Yeah.
is really a good time.
it
Okay,
really is.
so DK Knitting McPurley sweater, awesome. And then
Yeah, and then I've got another sweater that is also a DK weight, and that's a one color sweater that will be a pullover. And I'm not sure exactly when that will be out, probably middle of July, maybe beginning of August. And then I've got this yarn from Revolution that I've been pondering for a while, but I'm going to do a just a two color sweater, and the blue is going to be the main color and the white will be the color work on the yoke. And that'll be something that will be pretty basic and accessible to somebody who hasn't done a lot of color work, and a lot less ends to weave in. Like, when you're changing colors all the time, there's a little bit of finishing that you have to do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Just even
very
holding
cool.
those colors up, they look very classic. Like,
yeah. Well, and
do.
the light one has just tiny little light speckles on it too that are pinks and greens and reds, and you
oh,
can't
nice.
really see that. I'm sure, yeah, you can't see that online, but they're there and they're very pretty.
Yeah, her yarn is really lovely.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
very
it's been
cool.
nice getting to know her. I really like her, and I discovered her on your channel. She had such a compelling story that I went out and bought her yarn right away. So
That's awesome. Very cool. I'm
Look at
excited for all
this.
your
All
things
the
coming.
yarn dyers and knitters getting together. It's a grand old
We're
time.
all friends.
yeah,
It's all great. It's a nice example of you don't have to tear each other down. We can all be designers and make different things and be friends, or have lots of
right.
different indie dyers we love. Like, it's all good.
It is all good. And it's a lot more fun that way, where we can all talk and collaborate and get along and just enjoy our hobby rather than looking for the bad in people, or looking for somebody doing something that you might not think is great. You don't have to like everything about every person. You can just enjoy the things that you have in common and move on.
Very
Mhm.
true. Very true. All right.
Yeah, so those are my current works, and beyond those, I haven't thought about much yet, but I'm sure there will be more to come, because as soon as I get done with one, then I feel the need to start another.
That's awesome. Maybe you have inspired me to become at least a sometimes sweater knitter. I'm not going to go out and make a bunch of them, but maybe I'll try a couple. Maybe we'll see.
Good.
Before we go, don't forget to check out Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. Use the code Turkey20 PIK for 20% off your order. Comment on this video to win a skein of our PIK colorway because it's excellent.
It's very, very pretty, very rich.
And Cheryl, thanks so much. It's been so much fun talking to you. I'm glad you were able to make it out and join us today.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. And remember, you can find me on YouTube, Wiesel Knits, and my website is wieselknits.com. So come and check out my patterns.
Yes, they're excellent. I can vouch for her. So make sure you check her out. All right, guys, thanks. We'll see you next time. All right, bye.
Bye. Thanks.